Smooth production.
And before we get started today, I just wanted to tell the audience how I met Noor and how we came to actually come and have this interview. And when I was an undergrad at East Carolina University, I took a class called Global Understanding, and for that class we were one of our links was with Iraq. I believe it was around about the time when Iraqi colleges were first starting to use the program, and it was very interesting to hear from other college students that also grew up with the Iraq War in the background during their lives. And so that's where I met Noor. That was, I believe, 6 years ago. I can't really remember.
Yes.
And we have stayed in touch since then. And since now that I have this podcast and outlet, I wanted to interview her about the Iraq War and her life growing up with that and what she's been doing since then. And again, Noor, her name is Noor Musah, and I appreciate you talking to me today.
Thank you. No, it's okay. I really appreciate the opportunity because actually I have never spoke to anybody about the experience of living in Iraq and the war. So it could be a great experience to, my first time sharing it, it would be reaching more people than I expected. So it's a great opportunity. Thanks for that.
Oh, you're very welcome. And before, I guess, to get started, because when you were born and growing up, said that Saddam Hussein was still in power. Can you speak about how that was what that experience was as an Iraqi woman growing up?
Yes, actually, when I was a child, I was at school, and we used to celebrate Saddam Hussein being our president. We have his pictures everywhere in our books. We say his names. We sing songs for him in the schoolyard. So we grew up knowing that he's a good leader. And then we started to watch on TV that America wanted to do to start a war on Iraq, and that we have nuclear weapons, and we know that we don't. So knowing that this war is going to happen, all we knew that America is an enemy and they want to destroy us. And so when the war did start, we were scared. I was, I think, 11 years old, and we had to hide. We left Baghdad and went to other city, which is safer. And things went terrible because we started to see death, and we started to recognize that, no, we were safe. Now it's not. But year after year, we discovered that we were actually ignorant. Saddam Hussein kept us under a shell, actually. We didn't know what is out there. We started to have televisions, satellites, mobile phones, later on internet access, and we started to know that we were different in a sense that we were not living in the same world that the other countries, other peoples are living. So year after, we start to sense that no, Saddam Hussein wasn't great, but the war actually wasn't great too, because we lost many people, we lost many things, and many people immigrated from Iraq. Many systems crashed in Iraq. So we don't actually, for many kids, I'm going to say kids because we are raised to love Saddam Hussein, and then after that, then Saddam Hussein is a bad guy, he oppressed us, now we should hate him. So I think me and many kids, we don't really know what should we feel about Saddam Hussein. And it is confusing, but at the same time, we know that we are now in a better place when it comes to connecting to the world and having better opportunities.
And that's a very interesting take of it, because before we get into the mission itself, I guess coming from an American's perspective at that time, I believe it was 2003, so I was around 13, 14. It was 13 years ago now. So yeah, 16 basically. And I at the time didn't quite, because it was very interesting perspective, because a lot of us, we weren't exactly taught much about the Middle East and Iraq, other than the fact that back in the early 90s, there was a Operation Desert Storm, which was against the
Yes.
Iraqi military. We didn't get a full experience of what you were being told there, but we did hear about the things that Saddam Hussein had done, especially to the Kurds and some of what he was trying to attempt to do in Kuwait. And so, as a kid growing up in Iraq, in basically in a very closed environment where you weren't allowed to even really explore what was going on in the rest of the world, do you how do you feel your education was, and how do you feel you were treated by other Iraqis, and especially Iraqi men, as a young girl at that time?
Things were normal, as I said, because we knew this is the only life we knew growing up. Our parents, they know that Saddam Hussein did these crimes, but even our parents, they cannot tell us these stories. We didn't see them on TV. Nobody told us this story. We don't know these things did happen. And probably we would grow up in Iraq where we know that Saddam Hussein is a great leader, and that's all. Because nobody dared to talk badly about Saddam Hussein. So I told you, like, we knew, we felt that something wrong. Saddam Hussein is a good man. Why this is happening? Because we were growing up in an environment where was created to make Saddam Hussein as a great leader, and so it was normal. Nobody treated us a different way. Nobody treated us like in any certain way that we would feel like there's something wrong. Knowing after the war, knowing that Saddam Hussein did this, we didn't know actually about the Kurds, about the Kuwait war. But after the war, all of a sudden, our parents start to talk about it. People start to talk about it on TV. We started to see the images, and we like, where did that come from? So it took many years to process it. I think till now we are not able to process it because it was very confusing. They taught us to love him and to respect him, and then all of a sudden we should feel that he's a criminal, and we should feel happy that we get rid of him. So it's still very unsettled for me, and I think for many young guys too in Iraq.
And that's definitely something we're going to explore a little bit later in the conversation, because that is very interesting. And before, on March 20th, 2003, is when the shock and awe, as it was explained, bombing campaign of Baghdad began. And you said you were living in Baghdad at the time, correct?
No, actually, we moved for the war for 2 years on TV. Talking about war was appearing for us, and my family felt that Baghdad is not safe for us, so we need to move to a safer place. So I think many Iraqi people expected the war because it was on TV that this going to happen. So many people moved out of Baghdad, and my family was one of these families.
What was that's also very interesting. We're going to go talking that a bit. What were some of the things you were being told on TV about the incoming war?
All we saw that every day, in Saddam Hussein regime, we had only 2 channels, and we were kids. We were waiting for the cartoon. So the cartoon only 2 hours a day, and the rest of the TV is interviews with Saddam Hussein and saying things about the Americans and how they want to destroy more, and watching the preparation of the army, and we only saw the Iraqi side. And Saddam Hussein was very concerned about Palestine, so we knew more. We know actually a lot about Palestine at that time. Right after the war, we actually started to forget about Palestine because we are focusing on our country now. But still, that is a change too, because we used to know about Palestine, and we used to care, and even we are forced to because it is the only thing we can watch. But now we feel like we need the attention more than Palestine.
What was Saddam focusing on, specifically on Palestine? What aspect?
He was building an army. Actually, he was building an army, and the army had many compounds everywhere in Iraq. Actually, right in front of my house, there was a compound for the Palestine Liberating Army.
So he wanted to basically go to war with Israel over freeing Palestine?
I think so, because this is the only reason why he had to build such army. And it's not just that he built an army. Every student, every employer had to pay a decent amount of money for the liberation of Palestine. So as a kid in school, I had to pay money too for that.
And that's a very interesting as because they were making
Yes.
children also pay tax to help
Yes.
build an army.
Yes, because we are not forced to, but they make us feel that we are, because in every gathering they say you should participate. These people are suffering. These people are dying, and we used to talk about Aruba, which is belonging to the Middle East. So Aruba, it is Aruba. You should care about Palestine. Nobody else is caring. Iraq is going to liberate Palestine. It was the intention at that time. So I think because of his intention, the war started in Iraq. It's not about the nuclear at all, because everybody knew that we didn't have a nuclear weapon in Iraq. So many people think it's because he wanted to do this to liberate Palestine. So they think that Israel and America have this union, and they wanted to get rid of him.